I work at a university. It's a nice little university, and the great thing about it is that it's one of those universities that reminds me of those 1960s Walt Disney movies. Milford College or whatever. The genius that wore tennis shoes. You remember. You were there. Well, I was there. The downside of this university is it's hot in the summer. It is baking out here. It's not quite noon and it's already 100 degrees. 100 degrees. The high today is supposed to be 106, 110. And you factor in humidity and it's brutal. Just brutal. The thing that's neat about universities is that the students really want to know what to do. They want to know, hey, what do I need? What does the syllabus tell me that I need to do to make a certain grade? Well, I often tell them, it's not my education. You have to do the work. If I explain in a syllabus, I list it out. I'm doing all the mental work. And what is education about? Mental work. If I do all the mental work, they get to abdicate responsibility for their education. Ultimately, education is something that I have no control over. Well, let me rephrase that. I have control over education, but what I don't have control over is someone's learning. I cannot get in the brain and rewire it or wire it. And step back just a minute. It's not just college students. It's everyone. It's you. It's me. It's kids. And I know we work with early childhood kids. And yet, we cannot wire their brains. Much as we would like to, we cannot wire them. They have to wire it for themselves. We give them scaffolding to help them, but it's really up to them. And if they're not doing the work, God love them, the brain's not getting rewired. Even though No Child Left Behind says that it's our responsibility, and to a point it is, but to a point it's up to the child. The child has to do the work. And herein lies the big point I want to make. If we do all the singing, chanting, clapping, moving work for the children, and they're along for the ride, who's doing the work? Wherever you are, you're right there. You're right there. They're doing the work. You're doing the work, actually. They're not doing anything. They're hanging out, having a good time, enjoying life. And that's fine to a point. We have to allow them to work. And here's how we're going to accomplish that. If children need to do the work to make their brains wired correctly, or however they're supposed to be wired, if they have to do the work, then how is it, let me ask you, how is it that by putting on a baby Mozart tape, CD, how is that going to help them work? It's not. It will not help them work their brains. It just is a bath of sound. It's a good bath of sound. There are a lot of baths of sound, and this is a good one. Yet it's not work. And what is work in early childhood but play? The reason we're so good at getting kids to be aware of the phonemes in their language is that we play with them. We play with sounds. We play. We make it interesting for the child, and we play with it. We play. Play is work. We can do that same thing with music. The patterns of musical sounds. And those patterns are right here in your brain, whether you know it or not. The patterns of sound. They are in The chants and the rhymes and the poems, and they're in those things. The patterns of sound, the tonal patterns, are in the songs we use, songs they sing. And the thing is, to get a child to really process patterns of musical sound, they need to be producing. They need to produce those sounds. It's one thing to hear ah, eh, I, o, u, and it's another to produce them. To a point, hearing is fine, and yet they need to be in charge. Therefore, I'm going to give you 6 little tips that's going to make your job right there. I don't know why I'm looking over here, because that's what I'm saying. That's going to make your job so much more easy. Today, with your kids, that will make their musical experiences much more cognitively beneficial and help them turn into the next Nobel Prize winner in chemistry, because it's all about recognizing patterns. The reason we haven't figured out what cancer, or how cancer does its thing and solve it, is because someone hasn't figured out the right pattern. And maybe, just maybe, the child you work with tomorrow doing these activities may one day turn out to be that chemist, that scientist, that researcher. And that's what should keep you going. So anyway, back to the 6 things. First of all, one thing to keep in mind is that if you're going to manipulate something, it must be a known quantity. You would not ever ask a child to make something more difficult by adding something to it if it's the first day they've heard it. So always, always, always begin with, if you're using the chants and rhymes and poems and riddles and all those, well, riddles don't have rhythm, so forget the riddles. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. That and songs always start with things that they can do by themselves. You remember, you want to go from simple to complex, from the known to the unknown, from infinity or to infinity and beyond. The second thing that is important to remember is that you cannot get inside of their brain. You must allow their brain to work. Even though their brain isn't wired 100% correctly and the brain is going to make mistakes, it's all right. Do not feel the compulsion, do not give in to the compulsion to grab them if they stumble and fall. Skinned knees are just fine. When you are singing, chanting, or reciting something, who's doing the work? Who's not doing the work? Them. Kids are not dumb. If you are singing, they are not. If you are chanting, they are not. Why should they do the work if you are? Why should they work when they know you're going to work? Remember, folks, it's not your education. They need to work, or else their learning suffers. Do less, expect more. So, first of all, don't ever sing with kids. Present a song and just have them listen. And if you can do all of the stuff without a recording, please. The human voice is so much more powerful than a recorded voice. And I know we have tons of CDs out there. Really, rely on your own voice more than a recording. And anyway, I'll leave it at that. So, if you are introducing a chant or rhyme or poem or something, just introduce it with your voice. If you can sing the song, introduce it with your voice. If they know it or think they know it and try to follow along, stop them and say, no, I'm going to present this to you. I need you to listen. And have them listen. Kids many times don't listen because they're just so caught up in all of this other stuff we want them to do. So don't sing with the kids, sing for them. And conversely, if the children are singing, cierra la boca, keep this closed. Because when this is closed, these are open. And when these are open, this is thinking. And your job is to figure out where they're going wrong to help them. Okay? So you sing it for them, or chant it for them. They chant it for you. Never the twain shall meet. You've got your job, they've got their job. That's how the workload goes. All right?